God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. But God only knows the real you. There's a kind of love that God only knows.
Welcome to Season 3, Episode 50 of Your Journey Is Not Over. My name is Tanya Pearson Randolph. This is my own personal journey. This is my healing journey, and the expressions and opinions are of my own. I own all the rights to my personal journey, to my healing journey, and to Your Journey Is Not Over. Neither of the three are to be used, copied, nor edited in any way without my consent. Well, picking up where I left off on my last episode, as I said, watching that Dr. Phil episode truly changed my life. I don't remember them discussing what led them there. It was all about overcoming it. And as I said, what stuck with me on repeat was one time a day. Leave my home one time a day. It didn't say travel across town nor travel across the country, even though that's what it truly feels like in the beginning of just getting the courage to overcome the anxiety, the panic, and in my case, the fear. As I began to daily just walk to the mailbox and back. At first, it was straight to and straight back in, and then telling myself, you did it. And as I like to say, live to tell about it. Celebrate it. Celebrate yourself. You took control of the anxiety and panic and fear, if only for a few minutes. And guess what? You took your power back. You pushed through. You challenged yourself. And you did it. And as I said, each day, it gradually became easier to open my front door and step outside. Also, after getting my courage up, getting braver is what I call it, I began to ride with my now late husband. Quick places like drive-throughs, convenience stores, and sometimes we would take a nice drive around our reservoir. Again, I'd miss just the small things even, the ducks, the water, the fresh air. But I would be lying if I said I was completely relaxed during these times. In my mind, my brain was racing. That panic was telling me, get home as fast as you can. You're not safe. Even though I was safe. As I have said, we all have different traumas, different experiences, different life lessons that led us all at the same destination, in complete lockdown. And as I've shared, mine was delayed reaction to the many traumas I experienced at the hands of my mother. I now know that. I didn't know that then. And I'm sure I suffered from PTSD. So that's where my anxiety and my panic attacks stem from, developed. And reflecting back, I do recall a time before my mother's death. It was years before my lockdown, too. And it was a time my brother and I were extremely close. We both at that time had disconnected from our mother, and we developed a close bond. Again, even though in different states, we spoke almost daily on the phone. It's a time before our childhood traumas that led to my brother's addictions, and ultimately, it cost my brother his life. Well, I started having recurring dreams, nightmares actually, that I was walking into Walmart, and right there, in between the main doors, is the section where you get your shopping carts at. Well, in my dream, I ran into my mother, and she shot me. Again, everyone around me at work heard about these nightmares that I kept having on repeat too. They were terrifying. So I decided to finally tell my brother about it. He wanted every detail too. And then His voice changed. It deepened, almost like it scared him. And he said, "Tanya, listen to me. If you ever do run into her, keep your eyes on her hands. If they go behind her, if she goes to get into her purse, take her down." Then he kept saying, "Do you hear me? I mean it." And he kept repeating it as if getting his point across. And I told him, "I can't. I promised Grandma I would never put my hands on her." That's when he got real irate with me. "You take her down. If you don't, she will kill you." He kept saying, "Do you hear me?" until I agreed and assured him, promised him I would. I know my brother, and I know he had the same intuition, the same gifts, the same foresight that I had, and he knew my dreams was warning me. So to avoid any chance of running into her and having to break my promise to my grandma, having to take her down, like I promised my brother that I would, and to avoid getting shot, I just quit going to Walmart completely. Because of the nightmare, the fear, I didn't go to Walmart for years, but I did see her at a Dollar General store. I went in the store. I was just walking through to go to the aisles that I needed. I got a glimpse of her in my peripheral vision on my right side, and truthfully, I couldn't get out of that store fast enough. I left my cart, my stuff, and quickly got out of there. The fear of her, the fear that nightmare had brought was unreal. It was horrible, and yes, my mother owned a 38 handgun. It's the one that she held me at gunpoint with, loaded, cocked, and pressed to my temple several times. This happened always in one of her manic episodes. And by the grace of God, I managed to negotiate with her and save my life. And sadly, it's also the gun that my brother inherited and used in his life. Also, I have to say, I've made a promise to God that if he ever closed that door with her after those horrendous messages telling me to go kill myself when I was already struggling, starving, and barely hanging on. The devil used my mother my entire life. Well, as I've said, I begged God for her to just leave me alone, go back in the hole that she had been in for almost 10 years, and I would never open that door again. I had learned my lesson for the final time, and I promised God, and I do not break my promises. You're only as good as your word, and so much of my life, I've not had much, but I've had my word and my integrity. So then, fast forward, a lot of recent traumas that triggered old traumas. And I will always say, that $25,000 life insurance policy on me, that was reality. And it hit me hard. It triggered and it opened up all the old traumas and just how close to death I'd been so many times at the hands of my mother. I now know what we survived and moved on from, not overcame. No, what we stored, we blocked, we compartmentalized. Well, it's all there, just waiting to be triggered. And once triggered, we have stored, we've blocked, we've compartmentalized all that we can. And most like myself, millions of people too. Locked down, away from the world, we retreat for safety. We are human. And I just said this the other day too during a Zoom meeting with one of my spiritual advisors. Across the pond, I might add. With mental illness running in my family, every other generation too. My great grandma, then my mother, now my very own daughter. Well, the generation that it skips were the ones that get traumatized the most. We're the ones that absorb it all, have to sit back and watch history repeat itself. We suffer with having loved ones suffering from mental illness. We try to deal with, we try to cope and help them. We try and reason with them. And we are also the ones that take the brunt of the mental illness. We have a rougher road than most. We see, we hear, we experience traumas that others have no clue about, all because of mental illness that spans generations. It's a generational curse, a cycle that skips generations. So what we experienced, went through, seen, heard, endured was not our fault. We were born into this, and we must break the cycles. My grandma, having survived her childhood with a mentally ill mother and then losing a baby, and having a daughter, my mother, just truly playing repeats on what she'd endured as a child, much like myself. And then becoming a young widow, again, much like myself. She succumbed to the anxiety, the panic attacks, the depression. She locked down away from the world, again, much like myself, but I broke the cycle. I broke the curse by overcoming my anxiety, my panic attacks, my fears, and taking control of my life, getting my life back. I don't lie to people. It's not an easy journey, but it's a journey that God built for you. He knows what you're made of. Of course, He does. He made you Himself. And what's the saying? Nothing good ever comes easy, and you have to work at it. Work on you. You can do this. You can overcome this. You can do anything you set your mind to. And please remember, it's progress, not perfection, is what we strive for. I do not own the rights to the things I chose to share today. A garden doesn't bloom overnight, neither does life. Give yourself time to grow. Beautiful things take time and patience. Be patient with yourself. One day I realized the trauma I worked so hard to hide was exactly what God was calling me to share, so that others know you are not alone. At the end of the day, please remind yourself that you did the best that you could, and let that be enough. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. They're plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. God said, I know the plans, not I'm figuring them out, not I'm working on them. He knows them. He already sees the full picture. He already knows how this ends. You're not a question mark to God. You're a known and loved person with a plan already written over your journey. But first, we must do our part and move with love, the grace, and trust that God's got us in the palm of His hand. This concludes my podcast for today. Please join me next Tuesday. Listen in, and always remember, your journey is not over. God bless.
God only knows what you've been through. God only knows what they say about you. God only knows how it's killing you. But there's a kind of love that God only knows. God only knows what you've been